The Rundown, Part 13, a Farlost story by John Miro.
Twilight fell upon the darkening road. I found myself again alone. Street lights went out by one, by two, by three. Now reveled in the shadows that had grown. Yes, I reveled in the darkness I had known.
Roland pushed through waist-deep sewage and smiled. The muscles in his legs burned with the constant push, but after days shackled on Bayman's ship, and then in the cell on that cop's ship, it felt good to move. Even through all of Lochlaw's dumps and drips. The man they'd sent to free him had given him something to coat his nostrils, which killed most of the smell. He'd had to learn to keep his mouth shut. That had almost cost him his lunch, but it was small price to pay. His ears still rang from the explosions back on the pier. His body was stiff and sore from the wind tossing him like a rag doll. Still, he was alive. He was free. His friend here promised to get him somewhere out of reach of the cops, and more importantly, away from the guard. The smile dimmed just a little. His one regret? That cop on the pier was still breathing. Tough son of a bitch. Clever, too, Roland grudgingly admitted. Surviving their tussle? Roland almost respected him. Not too many people came out of a matchup with Roland Bird still able to breathe unassisted. Roland felt cheated that he never got a chance to finish him. The guard team that tracked him down on Spin Top, that was different. He could have gotten out of that. As for Bayman, well, he was Bayman for Thorne's sake. You couldn't feel bad about getting nabbed by a legend. Having some nothing cop foil up his escape, and him still walking around, that wasn't right. He shook it off and plowed faster through the leavings of a dozen species. Some of it was glowing yellow. That wasn't right either. He laughed a little, imagining what kind of sentient pinched a glowing yellow loaf, then remembered to keep his mouth shut. The ceiling was lit up too, bioluminescent blue. It gave off enough illumination to let him see the bald head guiding the way. Just ahead, the short guy said, panting a little but still keeping up a good pace. Roland couldn't see any implants in him. He looked vanilla human. But the stocky guy in the gray overalls was tough enough to keep up a pace through the shit sludge that even Roland felt. It wasn't hard to match it, but it wasn't easy either. He pegged the little fire plug for a dock worker. He'd known his way through the guts of the pier way too well to be a tourist there. He didn't much care who he was so long as he got them away from the pier before the police could lock it down. Not every dock worker could handle a shoulder cannon like Baldy had, though, or know about hidden passages built inside decommissioned airlocks at the bottom of the pier. Unknown commodities bothered Roland, so he employed a little small talk. "Thanks for saving my ass back there." An upward twitch from the side of Baldy's mouth, a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Thank my boss," he said, but Roland heard something in the man's tone that said his compliment had earned him points. Most sentients weren't like Roland Bird. Compassion and empathy were common traits among every species. Roland had learned how to duplicate both of them before he'd grown into his brains and muscles. He knew the value of making yourself matter to a fellow sentient. It could make them hesitate before going for the kill or let something slip that would help Bird kill them first. Up ahead, Shorty was stepping up out of the water. Bird felt for the step he'd seen him take and smoothly followed him up. The water above the stairs was only ankle deep. Ahead, the wide tunnel forked into three. The fireplug pointed to the one on the left, then leaned over and put his hands on his waist, catching his breath. Roland's smile grew at the sign of weakness. His guide produced a thermos, took a big slug, and handed it over. Roland sniffed, but his nose was neutered. He raised his eyebrows. "Just water," Baldy said. "Go ahead and finish it." Roland nodded his thanks and drained the thermos. "So, you're the guy," Baldy said after accepting the thermos back. Roland raised his eyebrows again, still smiling. The guy... Baldy was sizing him up, Roland could tell. The guy who's paying for my kids to go to school. And their kids, too. Sure am, Roland said, and waved toward the tunnel Baldy had indicated. The little guy nodded and started at a jog. Semat brings stuff through here every other week. You're the first living package, though. Why is that? Roland deflected this question, too. Truth is, he didn't know the answer, but he wasn't about to admit that. Like you said, ask your boss. But I'm grateful to you. Nice shooting back there. The tough little guy grunted, and they jogged ahead in silence, save for the splash of their feet, the far-off rumble of machinery, and falling water. Baldy put up a good pace again, but Roland could see him favoring his left side. Cramping up, Roland bet. Doing a good job of fighting it, but he could likely put him down with one punch if he had to. 10 or so minutes later, the guy waved him to a stop. Roland looked around. A line of blue in the middle of the ceiling faded into black in both directions. He watched Baldy cross to the wall where a small smear of blue glowed. Roland had seen several patches of the blue on the wall, but this one was different. Not just one smear, but two. Crisscrossed. X marks the spot. Baldy hammered the wall with his elbow twice. He waited a second, hammered the wall 3 times more. Another second. Then 2. Then 2 more blows. A few more seconds of silence passed, then a vibration passed through the floor. A rectangle emerged from beneath the muck, rising to knee height before jerking to a stop with a rusty sound Roland again felt through his legs. A smaller rectangle on its flat top appeared, outlined in a crack of dirty yellow light. The crack of light grew as the far end sunk lower. Roland stepped closer and peered down the incline of a ramp, leading to a bare patch of rock wall. Roland looked at his guide, who shook his head. Just you from here, Baldy said, and turned back the way they'd come. Roland watched him go as he stepped up onto the ramp. He crouched and peered below. He smelled earthy, cool air. He saw no one. Baldy began whistling as he disappeared into the dark. Roland descended into the cavern. The ramp started back up before he'd reached the bottom, and Roland jumped off with a curse. He landed in a crouch, adrenaline pouring into his bloodstream. "Where are you?" he growled. Only his own voice echoed back, punctuated by the hiss of the ramp locking itself back into its box on the ceiling. The dim yellow light was coming from the other side of the cavern. With no exit to consider behind him, Roland set out toward it. The floor was inclined, uneven rock. He stumbled and fell twice before the ground leveled out. He found himself at the mouth of a massive passage, blown clumsily through the rock. The yellow light was still dim, but it was brighter on the other side of the cavern. He reached out and touched a rivulet of salt and mineral dribbling down the wall. He looked up. Stalactites, icicle-shaped formations of mineral and water, reached halfway down from the high ceiling. The passage must be hundreds of years old, he guessed, as he made his way through towards the light. Even with the stalactites, there was still room for beings twice Roland's height in here. Another sentient might have experienced fear at the predicament. Roland merely continued through the ancient passage. Answers were on the other side. Roland Bird wanted them. To know when and where to free him, someone had infiltrated the police. To evade the inevitable manhunt sure to follow his escape, he had been smuggled through a long-hidden network of tunnels. Roland took note of long claw marks marring many of the stalactites, but they triggered no emotional response. He just wasn't wired that way. He sidestepped the last of the forest of stalactites and saw the end of the passage ahead. The far wall was hidden in darkness, revealing only a wide-open space. He jogged down another ramp and tracked the light to the left. Roland wasn't easily impressed, but walking into an ancient stone temple hidden beneath the sewers of Locklaw Sky City did the trick. The place was at least 500 meters around, he thought, walking forward onto the gray stone floor. The yellow light emanated from a doorway at the top of an altar, a dozen or so wide steps above the carved stone floor. He walked forward toward the center of the floor. There was a pattern carved into the long, rectangular gray floor stones, but he couldn't make it out in the dark. He walked along the circle precisely etched in the floor and tried to make sense of the lines inside it. They were in no language he'd ever seen. It wouldn't matter if he'd spoken it fluently, though. Every scrawl of text and every image in the circle was cratered and pitted. He looked up. A few of the same stalactites from the cavern dipped low enough to reflect the yellow light from atop the steps. Had falling rock destroyed the ornate work? Halfway around the circle, he had to step around a pile of rubble. Small and large chunks of rock lay everywhere. He guessed this place wasn't rented out for weddings and coming-of-age ceremonies. He looked toward the yellow backlit altar or stage or whatever it was. It had been fashioned out of the same gray stone that made up the cavern wall. It had once been flanked by ornate columns, and the walls had once been engraved with ornate patterns. Every image on every surface had been destroyed. The columns still stretched down from the dome-shaped ceiling and up from the smooth floor, but some heavy weapon had shattered them all in the middle. Roland approached the steps, taking in the scope of the damage covering the walls of the cavern. The destruction was total. Not a single image or word remained whole. "Somebody had a big hate-on for this place," Roland murmured. "A lot of someone's, yes." Roland jerked his head up. A man stood at the top of the stairs as if he just appeared there. That did send a shiver down his spine. "Where the hell did you come from?" he wondered, momentarily frozen in place by surprise. The man wore a silver-gray suit, gray shoes, and a gray tie. His shirt was even whitish-gray, and so were his horn-rimmed glasses. A subtle white light spilled out from the glasses to cast strange shadows on the man's face. "You are standing in an audience chamber, a temple of sorts, where the highest of the tiers would prostrate themselves before dragons." Roland started forward, whistling. "No shit. A dragon temple. Yeah, I got no love for them. Must've been quite the battle. How many lizards got plugged down here?" The man gave a weak smile as Roland climbed the stairs, powerfully leaping the oversized steps 2 at a time. "You misread the room, Mr. Bird. Very few dragons were ever killed during the city wars. Most fled, leaving the tiers behind to cover their escape. All this destruction," the completely average-looking man said, raising his hands to indicate the breathtaking scale of damage pitting every surface of the temple, "was wrought by the tiers themselves." Roland landed mere feet from the well-dressed man with an echoing crack. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stared back. No, the man wasn't staring at him so much as through him. The dim smile on the man's face twitched, and he held out a hand. "You may call me Martin, Mr. Bird. I hope you're enjoying your newfound freedom." Roland smiled an equally plastic smile and shook the offered hand. "Sure am, Marty. I have you to thank for that, do I?" The man's eyes crinkled a little at Roland's butchery of his name, but Roland couldn't tell what it signified. "My employer, yes." The handshake ended, and Martin stretched the same hand toward the hallway behind them. "Shall we? I have transport waiting above. What would you like first? Sex? Food?" His lips might have curled upwards. Roland couldn't tell that for sure either. "Fresh clothes and a shower." Roland walked on. "How about answers, Marty? Start with why you sprung me." "Of course," Martin agreed in a sleepy, disinterested tone. Roland didn't buy the mannerism for a moment. Martin was a shark, a predator, just like Roland Bird. Through the corridor lay an unremarkable square hallway etched through rock. Flat rectangles glowed every few meters on the walls and ceilings. Small alcoves lay on either side, stacked with crates. The next stop for the deliveries Baldy made. He remembered the name his guide had mentioned in the sewer. "Semat, right? That's your boss? What's he want me to do?" "Semat? Oh, he has his uses in Piertown to be sure, but we have something a bit more large-scale in mind for you, Mr. Bird." At the end of the hallway stood 3 heavy-duty vault doors. The central door opened, and Martin waited patiently for Roland to enter. Instead, he turned and waited. Martin made a small apologetic sound. Of course, answers. We want you to make yourself at home here in Locklaw, and let us provide the funds and connections to help you keep doing what you've proven so adept at doing in the past, Mr. Bird. Roland waited, arching one eyebrow. Martin's smile grew a bit more predatory, a bit more honest, and a bit more excited. To terrorize the system guard, of course. You have been listening to The Rundown, a Farlost story, written by John Miro. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Opening music, Everything Is Not What It Appears, kindly provided by Nate Maingard at natemaingard.com. Closing music, Full On, by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. If you like what you hear, you can become a patron and support more stories at patreon.com/servingworlds. Thanks for listening. See you next week.